This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Hey listeners, this is Peter and welcome back to the History Shorts. Today's episode is brought to you by the Podcast Republic, your ultimate listening app. Discover and subscribe to thousands of podcasts from around the world. Download Podcast Republic today, available on Google Play and the Apple App Store. Today on History Shorts. During the Civil War, the most valuable Union spy in the Confederate capital was not a soldier in disguise, not a daring infiltrator from the North, not a professional intelligence operative. She was a 43-year-old Richmond socialite named Elizabeth Van Lew, born in the city, raised in it, and known in its finest circles, who had decided at the outbreak of the war to commit treason against the Confederacy with every tool at her disposal. She ran a spy ring that reached from Libby Prison to the Confederate War Department to the dining room of Jefferson Davis himself. Ulysses S. Grant later called her intelligence the most invaluable he received from Richmond during the entire war. And to protect herself while she did it, she cultivated a reputation for eccentricity so thorough that her neighbors called her Crazy Bet, a harmless madwoman who could be safely ignored. But she was not harmless, nor was she mad. Our history brief today is an excerpt from this Friday's Conversation series episode and a conversation with the Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and author Eric Moskowitz about his latest book, The Hardest, Longest Race: Henry Ford and the Cross-Country Contest That Changed America. Just a reminder that the full video of the interview is already available to our Patreon subscribers and will be released on our YouTube channel this Friday, as well as on all podcast platforms. A quick word from our sponsors.
Fall is here, and no matter which tags you have in your pocket, Vortex has you covered. Hunt your way and trust that your gear is up to the test when it matters most. Every Vortex product is covered by our VIP warranty. No red tape, no receipt, no hassle. Covered for life, no matter what. Make sure you're ready for fall. Vortex has you covered with gear that's up to the test when it matters most, no matter how you hunt. And covered with a VIP warranty. Grab your Vortex optics, apparel, and everything else you need at shields.com.
This day in history. On August 19, 1934, Adolf Hitler became Germany's undisputed leader after combining the offices of President and Chancellor into the title of Führer, completing his consolidation of power. On August 19, 1960, the Soviet Union launched Sputnik 5, carrying the dogs Belka and Strelka into orbit. They became the first living creatures to orbit Earth and return safely, paving the way for human spaceflight. Story of the day. Elizabeth Van Lew was born in 1818 into one of Richmond's most prominent families. Her father was a successful hardware merchant. Her mother was from Philadelphia. Elizabeth herself had been educated at a Quaker school in Philadelphia, an experience that shaped her views on slavery in ways that put her increasingly at odds with the society she returned to. By the time the war began, Van Lew had already freed the enslaved people her family held and had purchased the freedom of others, including several members of a family named Bowser. She was not, by Richmond standards, a secret abolitionist. She was an open one, which made her suspicious from the start and paradoxically gave her cover. People who were openly eccentric in their views were easier to dismiss than people who hid them. The crazy bet persona was not invented from nothing. It was built on a foundation of genuine social nonconformity, deliberately amplified. She began dressing oddly, muttering to herself in public, behaving in ways that confirmed her neighbors' conclusions that she was harmless. while running one of the most effective intelligence operations of the war. The Richmond Underground, Van Loo's spy network, operated across multiple nodes. She visited Union prisoners at Libby Prison, bringing food and books and gathering intelligence from officers who had recently been captured and knew the dispositions of Confederate forces. She hid escaped Union prisoners in a secret room in her mansion on Church Hill, a room behind a false wall in the attic that she had constructed specifically for this purpose. She recruited a network of couriers, enslaved people, free black residents, and sympathetic white Unionists who moved messages through Confederate lines using methods that range from hollowed out book covers to eggs with messages hidden inside them. She placed agents in Confederate government offices, and she placed one agent somewhere that no other Union intelligence operation had managed to reach inside the Confederate White House itself. Mary Bowser was a member of the Bowser family whose freedom Van Loo had helped purchase. She had been educated in Philadelphia. Van Loo had arranged and funded her schooling there. When the war began, Van Loo conceived of an operation of extraordinary audacity. She arranged for Mary Bowser to be placed in the Confederate White House as a servant, a formerly enslaved woman in a role that Jefferson Davis and his household would never have considered a security risk, because the assumption of the era was that black servants were invisible. They were not invisible to Mary Bowser. She was, by the accounts that have survived, possessed of photographic memory. She read documents left on Davis's desk. She listened to conversations at his dinner table, and she passed what she learned to Van Loo's network. The intelligence that moved from Mary Bowser's memory to Van Loo's couriers to Union lines has been credited with informing multiple Union military decisions. Now, based on my research, the historical documentation of Mary Bowser's role is real, but quite incomplete. Her own account, a lecture she reportedly gave after the war, which was widely noted at the time, was lost. Most of what we know about her comes from Van Loo's papers and from that later research. Mary Bowser destroyed her own diary at the end of the war, fearing what might happen to her if it were ever found. She erased herself from the record, deliberately, for reasons of survival, and history has only partially been able to reconstruct what she did. What is documented is that she did exist, and that she worked in the Confederate White House, and that she was part of Van Loo's network. The full measure of her courage and her contribution belongs to her, and cannot be fully recovered. Both things are true. She was indispensable, and her story has been incompletely preserved. Van Loo's operation continued throughout the entire war. She maintained a relay system of 5 safe houses between Richmond and Grant's headquarters at City Point, messages moving through the lines in ways Confederate counterintelligence never fully penetrated. She sent Grant fresh flowers from her greenhouse alongside intelligence reports. Grant later said that her information was always accurate and always timely. When Union forces entered Richmond in April of 1865, Van Loo raised a large American flag over her Church Hill mansion, the first Union flag to fly over the Confederate capital. Her neighbors, who had always suspected her, now knew it for certain. The social consequences were immediate. The price Elizabeth Van Loo paid for her service was the rest of her life. She had spent much of her family fortune funding the spy ring, bribing Confederate officials, paying couriers, maintaining safe houses, purchasing whatever she needed to keep the operation running. Grant appointed her postmistress of Richmond after the war, a federal appointment that gave her income and some protection. When Grant left office, the appointment ended. She spent her remaining years in increasing poverty and social isolation, shunned by the Richmond community she had betrayed, insufficiently celebrated by the Union that she had served. She wrote to the families of Union officers she had helped during the war, asking for financial assistance. Some responded, but not all. She died in 1900, largely forgotten, in the house on Church Hill, where she had hidden escaped prisoners and passed intelligence through false walls and hallowed books. The Union veterans that she had helped raised money for her gravestone. It reads, in part, "She risked everything that is dear to man: friends, fortune, comfort, health, life itself, all for the one absorbing desire of the heart, that slavery might be abolished and the Union preserved." The History Brief. The following is an excerpt from this Friday's Conversation Series episode and a conversation with the Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and author Eric Moskowitz about his latest book, The Hardest, Longest Race: Henry Ford and the Cross-Country Contest That Changed America. Again, just a reminder that the full video of the interview is already available to our Patreon subscribers and will be released on our YouTube channel this Friday, as well as on all podcast platforms.
Then you have this like wild race in 1907 from Beijing to Paris. And that's really just to show that like the automobile could go great distances. And then in 08, you have a absolutely bonkers race westward from New York to Paris. I mean, they thought cars were going to drive across the Bering Strait. That obviously doesn't happen. Cars spend a lot of time on railroads. They spend time and kind of cheating. They spend time on ships. Like that is not a really sort of competitive like sporting venture, but it's a sensation in terms of publicity. So in 1909, with that as a backdrop, you have a World's Fair in Seattle. The people promoting the World's Fair know they're going to have a harder time like getting tourists from New York, from Boston, from Washington, D.C., from Cleveland, from St. Louis, to get on a train and go cross country than you would have had to get them to go to World's Fairs, on the Eastern Seaboard or in the Midwest. And so they need something sensational that will get publicity. And they realize like if we have a cross country auto race, this is going to generate press day after day after day. And they need a name and they need money. And like into this environment walks 23, almost 24-year-old Robert Guggenheim, and he's basically a mark.
Thank you so much for spending some time with me today and helping to make this little show such a mighty success. If you are enjoying this show and would like to help with its production, you can always donate a few dollars at buymeacoffee.com or become a Patreon member to enjoy these episodes ad-free. Both of those links can be found on our website at www.historyshortspodcast.com. And don't forget to check out our YouTube channel where we have different videos and series that are not part of this main feed. Have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you all again tomorrow.
A flawless makeup look starts with the right foundation shade. Sounds simple, right? But finding your perfect match can honestly be one of the hardest parts of your routine. But there is good news. Sephora has all the best brands in one place, with so many shades, finishes, and coverage options to choose from. Plus, their beauty advisors, shade matching tools, and free samples make it so much easier to find the one that's just right for you. Visit Sephora and find your match.